Thanks, Steve. So I thought you would all like to know. Carol, I didn't get to call you. I always call Carol. I just didn't get a chance. So I thought you
That's
guys would
super,
like to
super
know
neat.
that. Yeah,
And I know
Carol's
you've
thumbs up.
been
Okay.
working hard to coordinate and organize all those people with the Jaguars to get them to address making the stadium more bird friendly. And I'm so glad that you accomplished them to turn out the lights. That's huge. That's a huge
It was
accomplishment.
teamwork and getting all new Jaguar gear. I'm only kidding. I didn't buy it.
Yeah, how
And
did
then
you bribe them?
the last thing is I'm going to be writing this in the newsletter, but there's a park in town. Again, I'm assuming some of the new folks might be a little bit new here. It's called Riverside Park, and it's an urban park. It's really great birding site. I don't go birding there, but Jay Kaufman has assured me it is. And it has a lot of great different birds, waterfowl too, but it's really tough for the birds to nest. So one of our members escalated to us that there was an issue last nesting season, kind of yucky with the birds not making it, quite a few of them. So we have eyes on the prize. We're putting together a small team to do outreach, but also to walk the park, to even do very mini surveys. So I don't know if anybody's interested in that. And this is the nesting season here for, I'll have to dial in on the dates. I don't really know, Pete, the black crown night herons, when they nest, but I'll put it in the newsletter. But if anyone's interested, just to come and see, we're also going to educate the public. Please don't feed the birds bread, because if you've been there, not only does the pond get yucky, but it's really bad for birds. So that's all I got.
Yes, check the newsletter for more information on that. It's a worthy cause. Last season, a lot of chicks fell out of the trees, night heron chicks, and the park was not very friendly to them once they were out of the nests. So,
But city's gonna work with us too, huh, Pete? We're gonna have signs and stuff like that. So we know more birds are gonna die, but not as many as what we're.
Yep, we're trying to help them prevent and help the birds not have trouble nesting there. Well, good. Thank you, Elizabeth. Anything else? Anybody have anything else before we briefly before we get started? Okay. Once again, here are the links to our website and the iNaturalist Crosby Sanctuary project, where you can view all of the species documented within the boundaries of the Crosby Sanctuary, and our eBird hotspot listing number here, so you can look that up as well. You can also search it on the eBird website. So yeah, let me jump right into it. See if I can make the slides change here. Not sure what's going on. There we go. A little background on Crosby Sanctuary. It's our about 510 acre nature preserve in Clay County, and it's owned outright by Duval Audubon. So we have total control over it, which is nice. Here's the times you can come visit: 3rd and 4th Saturdays of the month, September through May. And it is a pretty grassroots, all volunteer managed. So therefore, we have to keep it at limited access to those days. Also, people can, by special appointment, if you contact us, we can sometimes arrange other times that you can come out. And also, groups or educational groups can go out there too sometimes as well. So it's within the McGurts Creek Ortega River floodplain corridor, which runs through west of the river and western Duval and extreme northern Clay County. And we've owned parts of it. Initially started in the 1980s when the first 300 acres were donated to us from the Crosby family, which was in the timber industry, and they still own and operate a company in Jacksonville called the Putnam Lumber Company. So since then, we've acquired approximately 210 acres through various forms of acquisition. It's kind of just come together piece by piece, and we're not actively out there trying to build it, but as opportunities come along, we have been able to pick up and add to the acreage out there, which has been nice. And our last piece was about 60 acres, I believe it was, of not just wetlands, but also some uplands and marginal uplands on the northern side of the sanctuary, which were vulnerable to development or other activities by someone that might have acquired it other than us. Here's a map. I don't know if anybody can see my cursor. Yes, no? Okay. I'm scrolling the cursor around a little bit, but you can see it pretty easily. The red boundaries, this is off the Clay County Properties Appraisers website. And you can see part of it's under conservation easement, if you see in the middle there. But this northern boundary of the sanctuary is the Clay County, Duval County line. So it's right there on the south side of Duval County and northern Clay County, and it feeds into the Ortega River. Mostly bottomland swamp. And you can kind of see the grayer, dark grayish portions of it with the streamlines running through it. Those are all wetlands. And then the little bit more green, kind of dark area up in the middle west side toward the north is uplands, upland mesic hammock and pine flatwoods. Here's a little bit of a landmark map that you can see. The boundaries aren't shown, but it's right there where that yellow dot is, where kind of close to where it says to the left of Bel Air Meadowbrook Terrace. And you can see 295 coming across the Buckman Bridge, Highway 17, and then Blanding Boulevard and Argyle Forest Boulevard are the two roads closest to the Crosby Sanctuary. Here's an aerial map that shows you how well it's tied into these floodplain riparian corridors. There's actually kind of an interesting feature. The Ortega River corridor runs along the northern boundary and then flows up to the northeast under Landing Boulevard and then 295 in the top right corner of your screen. But there's also a little high spot of lighter green area up in the upper left corner of your screen, which is a little bit higher ground, and it's a drainage divide right there. And everything south of there on the left-hand side of the screen drains down into the Little Black Creek drainage, which drains eventually into Black Creek. So it's kind of a crossroads of these two riparian systems. So it's a neat, large amount of corridor habitat for wildlife to move through. Jumping right into eBird, here is our hotspot stats listing, whatever you want to call it, on eBird.org. And I hope everybody here is familiar with eBird. If you're not, raise your hand or give me put something in the chat and we can go over it. But eBird is the premier bird checklist platform. Whoops. It's hard to describe eBird because you just kind of take it for granted. It's there. It's been there for a long time, but it's a huge citizen science, community science tool that most birders use these days to record their observations and their checklists for various locations. Crosby Sanctuary is a hot spot, so any spot that can be created that people like to bird on a regular basis can be turned into a hot spot. And you can go and explore the hot spots and see everything that people are seeing there up to the first observed, last observed, and high counts. And you can see that we have 155 species from all years recorded out there, which is pretty good for the size and types of habitat that's out there. It's not coastal, so it's all wetland and mesic upland fringes. Mesic meaning moist, somewhat moist, but not wet or wetland. So yeah, some really interesting species in eBird. You can look at all the pictures, and this is a PowerPoint, and I'm going to switch over to eBird as well as we go along here, if I can figure out how to do that while I'm running Zoom on my machine. Give me one sec here.
Hey, Pete, this is
Yeah.
Carol. Elizabeth was asking why it says restricted on the location for Crosby, access restricted.
Oh, right. Okay. That's because you can't just pop out there whenever you want. You can only go on the 3rd and 4th Saturdays of the month. And most hotspots on eBird are public lands or places where you can usually access at any time. So this gives people a heads up.
Gotcha.
I think somewhere in there it might tell people when it's open. I can't remember.
I thought it was that the actual account here, Crosby Sanctuary, you couldn't get into. That's not what it is. I thought you needed special dispensation, Pete, to get into this Crosby Sanctuary eBird account. That's what I meant. But anybody can. Anybody can get in. Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. I'm trying to figure out how to open eBird here. Give me one second. And then I can move around in here and show you guys a little bit. All right. I'm getting there. How's that? Everybody see the black vulture?
Yep, looks good.
A face only a mother could love. All right. So you can click on the species observed, and it starts bringing up species. Right now we're looking at under the first scene view. I'm not sure why it's saying Georgia Life List. Let me back up a little bit. So right away, if you wanted to get to view Crosby Sanctuary's eBird records, you would go to Explore, and that's up here at the top toolbar here across the top next to Submit. So you go to Explore, and then you can explore by region, or everybody should be familiar. Most people are familiar with eBird on here. But if you want to explore by hotspot, you go down to the explore hotspots, and then you can enter, the name, or you can scroll around on the map and kind of hunt for it. And you see it pops up when you start typing in Crosby Sanctuary. Click on that, and it brings up a map, and with the pin of showing you where it is. And then you can click on this box, and then it brings up all of these. Here's some of the newer species that have been seen out there. You can look at it. It's popping up by month, so I'm going to go ahead and change this. Why it's doing this. You can change it to Well, it's only giving me options for this month and this year, which is kind of frustrating, but eBird, you have to just kind of play around with a little bit. Let's see here.
Hey, Pete,
Yeah,
in order to get to the full 155 species, yes, you have to click on the species list. And
Yeah,
that should show all of it, yeah.
yep, I just figured that out. So you just got to start clicking around and see what works. Usually you can get to what you want to see eventually if you stick with it. So this is the last observed view, which helps you kind of see what people have been seeing out there recently. I did happen to be out there, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. And man, it was wet. But I saw some pretty good birds. Nice red-tailed hawk, some wood ducks, which always fly away as you walk in the trail and you see them for a second as they're flying away, but they make their whistling wood duck kind of noise as they're flying. I didn't get any pictures. I'll keep scrolling through until we see any that anybody wants to look at or any pictures. I wanna show you some of the cool pictures that people have gotten out there. Dave recorded a least bittern out there back in the summer. I don't think his picture was very good, but there is the picture. And I don't see a least bittern. I guess yeah, that's one. Took it with his cell phone, so it's not the greatest picture. We've seen so many different species out there. It's amazing. Regularly see ruby-throated hummingbirds at our pollinator garden in the front with but we also see them and hear them back in the woods too sometimes. Mississippi kites, usually in the summertime, are ever present. Louisiana water thrushes are common to see out there. And our star of the show, prothonotary warbler, breeds out there. We've even had both species of water thrush. Here's a nice picture. Let's see if Carol, you're on the spot here. Ooh, I think I see a good picture there. There you go.
Oh,
And they tend to stay near the ground, foraging for insects on the forest floor, wetland floor of the sanctuary off either side of the trail as you're going up through the bottomland swamp. Swallowtail kites, laughing gulls would be flyovers. They don't usually land. Common nighthawk. Jessica saw one out there. And you can click on the comments too and see what people said. This one came out around sunset, which is what they usually do. All kinds of cool birds we've seen out there. And our list here would not have been possible. It would have by one person. So this is many people going out there, and you saw it was 700 and some checklists. And this has been over 10 years or more. So it never would have been possible to document this many species out there without eBird and all of the people that go out there and collect eBird observations. Rusty blackbird is one that shows up out there in the wintertime and during migration. It's a
picture there of that? Pete, is there a picture of that? There we go.
of the rusty blackbird. I don't think so. They're usually hard to get pictures of.
Gotcha.
I wrote a description. This was my observation. Kind of rusty is one of those species that your eBird reviewer is going to want to see a picture of, or at least a description of what you saw, and so that it's more plausible. But that rusty blackbirds aren't that out of the ordinary for the habitat that's out there and the time of year. Does anybody see anything on here that they'd like to know more about? Here's a famous sighting, and Jessica DeSelf picked up on this and put us on this bird on this particular date, which was awesome. Yep, see, I even gave her credit there. I don't know why her picture's not in here, because she probably got a better picture, but you can't see it that well. But the picture is good enough that you can tell it's a what golden winged warbler. If you look at it close enough. Sorry. Well, it's not a better picture. Just an amazing diversity of birds out there. It's crazy.
Oh dear.
Warbler. And we had painted buntings, blackburnians, veeries, you name it out there. A lot of these pictures that people get, because it's a forested area, they're a little bit dark, shady, shadowy, but as long as you get a good enough picture that it can be zoomed in on and you know, can reasonably tell it's the species that you're claiming, then it's usually accepted. American white pelican, obviously flyovers, sandhill crane as well. I don't think we've had them landing in there, but let's see. Flyover, yes. So just so cool to see all these different species that have been documented out there. Purple finch. One year we had an eruption of purple finches, and one showed up at Crosby, sure enough. There it is. Looks a lot like a house finch, a little more streaky, I guess, and purple. All right, I'm going to switch gears and go back to presentation. Let me just double check something. And before we switch gears to iNaturalist, does anybody have any questions about eBird and any of the species that we've documented at Crosby?
Pete, this is Lee. I have
Hey.
a quick question, but it's more about Crosby Sanctuary. Do you expect that there would ever be any more land that could be acquired for the sanctuary if it became available?
Yes, although we're running out of land that's connected to Crosby Sanctuary that's not developed.
Yeah.
If I can pull up the map, you can see possibly a little bit off the western boundary there. You can see some open land still remaining,
Uh-huh.
and the southern boundary just a little bit, and maybe potentially over there to the east along the Ortega River as it comes up toward Blanding Boulevard.
Do we have a way to monitor if that land ever goes on the market? Or do
Kind of, not really. I guess we could go on the property appraiser's website and see who owns that land and try to contact them.
okay. I just wondered.
I haven't done that mainly because what has not been developed in this area is pretty darn wet. So
Yeah.
to
So you
get,
don't foresee it being developed anytime soon?
no, I don't. If it hasn't been developed already, it's probably not going to be developed because filling in wetlands is very expensive these days. Not to say that it doesn't still get done, but most people. And then over here on the west side is the Orange Park Country Club community development. That's pretty much all wetland, and that community's built out, and the people that live there don't really want more lots, and they don't really let people come in and develop more land. I think that's part of that land is owned by the country club. I'm not sure. But that's a good question, Lee, and
It's a great question.
I'd
Yeah.
love to have you research that and see who owns some of those pieces, and we can talk about it sometime.
So I just go on the property appraiser's website and find that piece of land.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
You can search Crosby Sanctuary or Duval Audubon, and it should come up. And then you can pull up a map that looks just like this.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Lee. That was a great question.
Sure.
Any other eBird related questions? Okay. Let's jump into iNaturalist. Ding. So iNaturalist, here's a little intro. Most people know about iNaturalist that are into birding, because it's kind of like eBird, but it's a little different. Hopefully everybody on this call is familiar with iNaturalist, but if you're not, this is the icon, and you can download the app to your phone and start using it. It's a social network for sharing biodiversity information and help each other learn about nature. And here you go. The primary goal is to connect people to nature, and their secondary goal is to generate scientifically valuable biodiversity data from these personal encounters. So I would advise, if you're interested and you don't use iNaturalist yet, go download the app and start using it. And then you also set up an account on their website. The app is good for using in the field and kind of like eBird, and then the website's better for looking at your data and everything. Here's some stats on iNaturalist, which I was pretty blown away by when I went to their website. They just recently through 2024 reached 500,000 unique taxa documented on iNaturalist. And that's nearly a quarter of all known species on Earth, which is huge. Here's kind of a graphical representation of what the documentations are, and each green dot represents 1,000 species of observed species. There's still a long way to go, but that's mainly invertebrates, which are a lot harder for people to find and document. There's less people, iNaturalist, observing invertebrates than there are people doing plants and animals. So yeah. One cool thing I noticed was that on iNaturalist, their group of nearly all the species have been observed on iNaturalist. So nearly all the birds in the world have made it onto iNaturalist. And there's only 349 left that have yet to be recorded. And here's these green dots show where those species are from. And you can see it's in the tropics region of the world. Also the most biodiverse region of the world. There's also stats on, you can go on here and look at this, but remaining to unobserved reptiles, amphibians, and mammals. And there are people that are really into iNaturalist, and they see stuff like this and they're like, okay, I gotta go look. I gotta be the first one to observe, a new species on iNaturalist. And it just drives people, motivates people, and helps people get out and make these observations, which are huge, because there's when I was browsing on their website, there was another area which I didn't record on here, where it said they have a whole section of the website devoted to species that were thought to have gone extinct, that were rediscovered by people putting them on iNaturalist. So think about that. Like you're crowdsourcing, searching for thought to be extinct species and finding them and having, it's like having an army of scientists out there looking, for these species that were thought to be extinct. So if you're unfamiliar with iNaturalist, here's where you go to learn more about it. They have great tutorials on how to use it. It's pretty intuitive. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get into it, it's fairly easy to start. The biggest thing is, you see this, where was it? How to take identifiable photos. That's the biggest thing. You got to take good photos to be able to document and identify either yourself or get the, there's like an AI feature of iNaturalist that will help you identify species, and it's fairly accurate. But that said, you need to take as many good quality photos of what you're observing as possible, especially if it's a plant. You want to get leaves, flowers, stems, everything you can, anything unique features you can find on that plant. Also, I discovered, and I threw this in here because I thought it was really cool. I use one of these charitable search engines. Have been using one for a while called Ecosia, which if you reach a certain number of searches, it plants a tree. But apparently iNaturalist has one called Teamed Up with Karma, and it generates money when if you upload it or connect it to you see, it says you can add Karma to Chrome and make it your search engine, and it generates money for iNaturalist, which is a nonprofit organization. Pretty darn cool. So I'm going to switch my Ecosia to Karma pretty soon. All right, so let's jump into Crosby Sanctuary's iNaturalist page. This is the project. So anybody can set up a project, whether it be a Crosby Sanctuary or state park or state forest or any kind of geographical area you want. You can set it up and it will pull in all the observations into the boundaries of that project. So I just set it up with the boundaries of Crosby Sanctuary. And everybody that goes out there with iNaturalist, it kind of aggregates all these observations. So we've had 714 with 331 species, 236 identifiers. So that's people entering their observations in iNaturalist. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let me back up. 29 observers that have entered their observations from Crosby Sanctuary in iNaturalist. But the beauty of iNaturalist is not all of those observations were identified to species. So it's kind of like a crowdsource. So there's a lot of folks out there that like to browse around and see what observations are on iNaturalist, and then some experts as well, plant and animals experts or just enthusiasts, look at the observations and they help verify what they are. So you don't have to get the identification to species of the of your observation, but if you get good quality photos and get it with the iNaturalist identification tool to maybe to family or genus, and you post it, you'd be surprised, sometimes within an hour, you'll have someone, an identifier telling you what it is. So here's a map of the Crosby Sanctuary project boundaries and all the observations that are going into that project. And you can see most of them are close to our path or our trails out there. Most of the rest of the area is pretty swampy, so it's not easy to walk through. And I'll pull up iNaturalist in a minute. We can look at some of these cool pictures of these different species. So again, 714 observations, 331 species, all the different taxa. And here's the identifications. So dark green's improving, green is supporting. So improving would be taking an identification that's not down to species and identifying it down to species. Supporting would be a green that it is a certain species. And then not exactly sure what leading and maverick are. Okay, I'm gonna switch it up back to and I'll bring this up later again if you want to contact me. But I'm gonna switch to the website and we're gonna scroll around on iNaturalist. And I'm having trouble. Bear with me. Okay, can everybody see that? Anyway, this is actually my page. And I can show you the observation I made out at Crosby the other day, which has already made research grade. We were walking out of sanctuary, and right in the entrance yard grass was this cool Florida box turtle. Just amazing markings on the shell. And so as you scroll down, this user also agreed and suggested the ID was correct. So the beauty of iNaturalist is it's self-regulated, or what have you. It's a community of people that, if you say if your ID is incorrect, someone's going to correct you. That's pretty cool. And there are millions of researchers and scientists and so forth that are combing all this data and pulling observations out so that they can find out where these species are and try to work on different projects. But let me pull up, see if I can find the project. Okay. I'm going to community and projects, and I can look at, so you could search for the different projects. There's all kinds of projects on here if you're interested. Any species you want to learn about are in here. But I should be able to pull up the Crosby project. Here we go. Let's see. So from my profile, the projects I've joined, there's a cool one for Tilly Fowler Park as well. But here's Crosby Sanctuary, and it has the Duval Audubon logo. So if you're searching for it, look for that logo.
How do I know if anything's native or not? I didn't see that.
That's a good question. I think there's a little asterisk or something that pops up in iNaturalist that'll tell you, but I'm not 100% on that. We'll check that. So again, I'm scrolling down. There's the overview. We already talked about that. And let's just start looking at some of these species. Whoops. Okay, so here's the people that are the leaderboards, if you will, of number of observations and species. And the most observed species, which is American beaver, which for the species that you've never seen, but you see we have a dam and a lodge. That's funny. But we never actually see the beavers. So here again, here's the map. And I'm going to see if I can pull up the species. So 331 species. I'm going to click on those.
Yeah.
So American beaver. A lot of these are plants. Great blue skimmer. All these cool plants. And some of these have pictures. These are all pictures from iNaturalist. They're not necessarily pictures that were taken out at Crosby. I'm not sure why it does that or how it does that, but it probably just pulls up good quality pictures for you.
Hey, could you replay that again? Are you saying, because like when I use iNaturalist, I always put a picture up and then I wait till someone confirms it. Are you saying your picture that you took or Jessica or whatever is not the picture there?
I don't think it is, but let me click on this one and see.
Okay, gotcha.
Because iNaturalist has like some representative pictures
Mhm.
in there when you pull up that species. But anyway, this looks like,
Hey, right at the top of the picture, it said native to the United States.
Oh, did Lee? I didn't see it.
Yeah,
Where's-
look right in the top left.
Yeah.
Native to,
Oh, nice. Good. Good to know.
so this particular species of milkweed,
It's a nice picture.
longleaf milkweed, we found out there, and it is a particularly rare, somewhat rare milkweed species that caused some plant enthusiasts to want to go out and look at
See
it.
it? Oh, I love that.
I think these are our pictures, but gosh, I really couldn't tell you. Does it say? It doesn't say who took the picture, but
Can't imagine that they pop in another picture.
Hey, Pete, I'm pretty sure those that we were seeing were not your pictures that were taken. You have to actually go to
Interesting.
the project and then just look. I'm trying to remember, look at the project list differently. I'm sorry, I'm not being very helpful, am I?
no, you are.
But in order to see not the species, but your postings, which it's actually kind of hard to look at. It's a little awkward in my opinion. You have to go back up to the community and go back to the project and wait a minute, I'm sorry. On the left, you're already at the project, but on the left, to the left of the 331, you have to go to your observations to see your actual pictures, I believe.
There we go. Okay, these look like our pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing when it's the species category, they're picking the best picture of that species from its entire data bank.
Yes, that makes sense. So here's one of my entries, and this does look like my picture because not super perfect, but it's good enough for identification purposes. So like, for instance, when you're taking pictures of plants, you want the flowers, you want the flowers and stem, you want the basal leaves, which look different than the leaves higher up on the stem. Kind of a zoomed out photo of the entire plant. Oh, and this is kind of cool. It shows you on a map where the other observations of this particular species have been submitted. So I'll just scroll through some of these. If anybody sees one they want to look at more pictures of, just let me know.
Hey, Pete, this is Lee. I just wanted to mention that when I was up in Maine last summer, I used iNaturalist because I didn't recognize hardly any of the plant life. And it was really helpful to learn the names of species in Maine that I might not ever see again, you know? So it is a great tool to play around with when you're in the field and you're not just chasing birds.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. An amazing tool. Yeah. You can explore around and wherever you're going in the world, really, you can see what other people have posted and there's even field guides on here. So you can scroll around and there's some field guides that are in for different locations that you can find. And
Hey, Pete.
let
Oh,
me just
I'm
say one
sorry.
thing. I was going to mention this earlier, but I forgot. I when I was on my trip to Africa a year ago, I made an observation of a flowering plant that was the first ever observation of that plant on iNaturalist. So that's my
Very
claim to
cool.
fame.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete, this
Yeah.
is Carol again. A few minutes ago, Aaron asked whether iNaturalist expects photos to be geotagged so that the location can be substantiated.
Yes. So there's a feature on your smartphone camera. If you're using a digital camera, you can usually turn that on your digital camera. It makes it easier to geotag. It pulls the location in when you upload that photo into your observation on iNaturalist, and then it does need to be geotagged. So you need to turn on your geotag feature on your smartphone or your camera. Now, that said, if you don't do that, you can manually enter the location, and it wants you to do that when you do an entry in iNaturalist. If it's not photo's not geotagged, and you go to try to save your observation without any location, I think it prompts you to manually enter it, and you can search on a map and kind of just approximate, or if you know exactly, you can zoom in and kind of put a dot on the map. And then Carol, since we're talking about Carol, this is your observation, and good old Stumpy was an alligator that lived in the ditch right by the entrance to Crosby Sanctuary for a number of years, and then he finally disappeared. But if you can see, there's his head to the right, and his tail is a little stumpy, so we named him Stumpy.
Yep. He was out there almost every time we went out there, but he hasn't been seen in a couple of years, I don't think.
Yeah,
He's still alive. He's in another river, I'm sure. He didn't die, did he?
we speculated that he was at a disadvantage without a tail, so he was in this ditch because it was less competition with the other gators, but who knows. But now Stumpy's recorded in perpetuity on iNaturalist. So, and one other cool thing while we're talking about alligators is I was out at Lake Apopka one time and happened to run across a giant alligator with a giant soft-shelled turtle in its mouth walking across the trail. Took a picture, put it on iNaturalist. Next thing I know, I'm looking back at the entry, and there's all these comments in there, and one of them's, "Thanks for your observation," and it got pulled into some kind of project where it documents only pictures of alligators eating food, and it's like what alligators eat, and you can go on there and see hundreds of pictures of alligators eating different things. And it was so fascinating because how often do you see alligators eating when you're out in the wild? Usually you just see them kind of hanging out. But you can go on that particular site and see all these cool things that they're out there eating that people happen to have walked up on at the right time to get a picture of. So unfortunately, let's test out the native invasive thing with a known non-native species. So
That's
there's a
a
little
good one.
asterisk up here.
Let's see.
Well, it says introduced in
Oh.
Crosby Sanctuary, arrived in the region via anthropogenic means. So yeah, it tells you that. But
What does
unfortunately,
research grade mean?
okay, research grade. Let's see if it tells you. There you go. Can you see the little text box that popped up?
Kind of. It's really small.
It says research grade. Observations have media, location, a date, and a community consensus on a precise identification, usually at species level. Learn more about quality grades. Let me see if I can click on that. Oh, it kind of disappeared.
Nice. Oh.
It was supposed to take me to quality grades, but essentially, if more people have looked at your observation and verified it, then it becomes research grade. Especially at least one person has to verify your observation that it is indeed actually what you're saying it is. Now, if you don't know exactly what it is, say you just put it on there as a frog, somebody's going to come along and say, oh, that's a Cuban tree frog, and they're going to identify it for you, and then somebody else is going to agree with them, and then it becomes research grade. So it's not like anybody can just willy-nilly throw something on here and say it's something without it getting checked by the community.
So it's basically citizen science that's being, I guess, validated or vetted or whatever the word is.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
I think iNaturalist is probably the largest citizen or community science project in the world. The green anoles, a lot of different plants, banded water snakes. And this one cool was the air potato beetles eating this air potato leaf. You can't really see the beetles in the picture, but you can verify that it's air potato beetles because that's their classic lacy pattern that they eat up on the leaves.
Hey Pete, it's Kate. I have a question.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me shut the door. My wife just came home with the dogs. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, are there times when it might be important to use the obscured or the private on location, like certain types of plants, if they might be more rare or something? Is that, do you have any thoughts on that as far as using the private or obscured on the location?
Yes. So if it's a sensitive species, a rare plant that could be poached, or mushrooms, for instance, are pretty commonly poached. And I've even talked to people out in the field that say they love iNaturalist because it helps them figure out where to go to pick mushrooms. So there's different, I can pull it up. Let me see if I can pull it up and show you guys. So say this cut leaf evening primrose was super rare and desirable. Say it's a ghost orchid. So let's see if I can scroll down here. On the app, it shows you the location. I guess it's over here. Anyway,
Is it geo-privacy? I saw the word geo-privacy on there when you scroll. Well, it's on, yeah, there it is.
oh yeah,
Is
so
that it?
geoprivacy, it's open, it's an open location, anybody can see it, access it. But if you hit obscured, it wouldn't give you the lot long, it would give you sort of a general location where it might be, but it wouldn't give you exact location. And then private, there's three options: open, obscured, and private. Private would make it so that nobody else using iNaturalist could see that location except for the administrators of iNaturalist. And I would recommend, if it's a very sensitive species, say a well gosh, in the bird world, a lot of times on eBird, they don't like you to show the locations of painted buntings because people like to poach painted buntings for the pet trade. So it was a painted bunting, you could hit obscured or private. Generally, it's hard to say when you would want to differentiate and use private versus obscured. Say there was an observation that you made that you wanted to record in iNaturalist, so you have it in your recorded species, but it's on, say it's on private property and you don't want anybody to go out there, or say it's a really sensitive species that's on a nest that you don't want disturbed, make that private. It's a listed orchid species that somebody would want to poach, I'd recommend making that private. Anything like that. But most of the time you're going to use obscured or open. Obscured if it's sensitive, private if it's really sensitive. Any other thoughts by anybody else about that? I wish I had the app open. I could show you how to select those different things, but it's pretty easy to find when you're in the app making your observation.
Thanks, Pete. Those are good thoughts, especially about the nest, because of course we wouldn't want the nest to be disturbed.
Yeah, for sure. You can see two different, or thistle. Carol took this picture of the thistle and there happened to be a beetle on it, and it identified the beetle for you too.
I did a whole Crosby Sanctuary photo dump. I guess you can see it was a while back, but I looked through all my photos for any. Once I learned that there was a project on iNaturalist for Crosby Sanctuary, I went back through all of my photos and I found all the ones that were taken at Crosby Sanctuary, and I uploaded them all at once. So that's why there's so many from me in this particular section.
Yeah, it's really fun to do and see what comes up from your pictures and what identifications iNaturalist will help you make, which is the beauty of it, because you don't have to be an expert naturalist to become a proficient naturalist using iNaturalist. And you can
I
even
had
take,
no idea they did animal poop.
yeah, it'll tell you what, if you take a picture of poop, it'll tell you what it is. I took pictures of tracks and identified tracks for me. There's a nice monarch butterfly. Mushrooms. Now here's a good example of kind of a picture you would not want to try to use. Let's see if they had any better pictures than that. Dwarf St. John's wort. So that's the first picture. Okay, it's a little bit better on the second picture and the third picture. So, but you want to try to avoid blurry pictures like that. We won't call anybody out.
Pete, I have a question. What are people doing with the mushrooms. I think I know what you're gonna say. I don't think they're eating them like we did up in Connecticut.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, they're eating them. They're not doing anything. Gotcha. Okay.
No. There's a lot of foragers and mushroom enthusiasts out
Gotcha.
there these days
Oh, cool.
that use them
I
for.
thought it was something like related to,
Psychedelic mushrooms? Yeah.
there you go. Yeah.
You're not gonna find those at Crosby, but you have to go to find a nice cow pasture out in the countryside somewhere to find those. So yeah, common persimmon. I mean, you name it. And there's still a lot of species to be documented. We've only documented 331 species out there. There's a cool bee, and that's yet to be identified to species. It's identified to tribe. I guess some of these bees are a little tough without expertise or magnification.
Carol, is that on your finger? It's so cool.
That's Jessica, I believe.
Oh, I couldn't tell. Look, I thought it was Carol's pictures.
Yeah, Jessica's little sunbird there. Some cool snakes, brown water snake. Looks like kind of like a cottonmouth, but it's totally non-venomous. One of our most common trees out there, Carolina ash. Somebody got a cool mushroom growing in a knot. I'm not sure what this. That's a mushroom growing in the water. I've never seen anything quite like that before, but looks like it got identified. And of course, we've seen deer. There's a blurry Louisiana water thrush, and there's the golden winged warbler by Jessica. It's a little bit better picture. I haven't really posted a lot of birds on iNaturalist. I tend to do plants and insects and everything else I can't do on eBird, but it's good to try to put more bird observations on iNaturalist out there just because we don't have that many. But you can see it's a identifiable quality picture of a golden winged warbler. It's not magazine quality, but cool yellow-billed cuckoo. And all of these have been verified, research grade. Somebody even got a nutria. Jessica. Jessica was on a tear there for a while. A lot of plant species, a lot of plant diversity. There's our beaver lodge. Looks just like a pile of sticks. If you go out there now, well, I wouldn't advise going out there right now because it's probably underwater, but the lodge is a lot more evident in the wintertime when all of the vegetation's died back. Lots of butterflies out on the power line on the pickerel weed. There's a swallowtail kite. Just an amazing array of diversity out here. There's the prothonotary warbler. And we even get yellow-crowned night herons during the summer. Let's see if we have any additional pictures of the prothonotary. Such a cool bird. Oh yeah, Jessica's really captured a lot of good pictures here. You can see the beautiful yellow head and body and breast with blue wings and tail. Just a stunning bird to see. And you can also post recordings. So audio recordings. I did this morning. I took some recordings of robins that were massing outside my office on holly trees, and they were making so much noise that I could record it with my smartphone and upload it to iNaturalist. I'll show you guys that in a minute. So we have a prairie warbler. Let's see how this observation was documented. Oh, see, it's a recording. I don't know, did the sound come through?
Just barely, but a little bit, yes.
Yeah, I could tell it was a prairie warbler song. Oh, look at that. Jessica got a picture of a bird eating an insect, and it identified the insect for us. I
That's
think.
really cool.
It
Yeah.
says needs ID, so this observation still needs an ID. So no
Great
verifiers have,
shot, though. Great shot. Wow.
Yeah.
no verifiers have come on and verified that, but it says it's a member of the click beetles family. Any beetle experts out there want to take a shot? There you go. Black-throated blue warbler. So there are a good number of birds on here, but we need more. But as you walk around out there, there's so much life that you can just take pictures of everything you come across and put it on iNaturalist and help build this database. I do it all the time. And the list just goes on. For me, I'm not a bug guy, so I struggle with identifying insects, but with iNaturalist, it really makes it a lot easier. There's a nice green tree frog, our native tree frog. Ooh, great picture of a great crested flycatcher. Look at this longhorn bee. Look at that long green. I guess that's why they call it longhorn. Maybe it's its antennae. I don't think Jessica's on the call, but she's done quite a bit of posting on iNaturalist from Crosby. She lives down the street in the neighborhood, so that helps. Oh, we even got some mosquito fish from the water. Some lichens, violet-toothed polypore. That's pretty cool. I'm just going to keep scrolling until somebody makes me stop. Here you go. Here's a one that I put on there of river otter scat. And then, oh, cool. Yeah, this coastal plain dwarf salamander is one of the few salamanders we've been able to document out there.
Hey, Pete, it's Carol again. Sorry to
Hey.
keep butting in. But have you ever uploaded any photos from the trail cams of some of the species that have shown up on the trail cams? Would that be acceptable to iNaturalist?
Yes, it would. And I don't think I have. We have a stockpile of wildlife trail cam photos that need to be uploaded. So I can send them to you. You can upload them if you want, Carol.
Are they on the shared drive?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, you don't have to send them. I'll just look for them. That's just another project for me to work on. Thank you. Me and my big mouth.
No, but there's some pretty darn cool wildlife: deer, turkey, otter, coyote, bobcat, different wading birds and things that show up on the trail cams that would be cool to have in here. You might have to, they might not be geotagged. You might have to kind of estimate the location, but you know where most of the cameras have been positioned.
Yep. Yep.
Blue-eyed grass. Who knew that blue-eyed grass was that beautiful? One of the things, yeah, we'd like to get more observations of is butterflies out there. We have a limited number of butterflies. We have more plants, mosses, grasses, and things probably than anything. One of the cool plants you can see out there sometimes is swamp leatherflower, Clematis crispa. It has these really cool curled petals, and it's a upside down kind of bell-shaped flower with the petals just curl around. And some of these are only identified to genus, so it's like we need to do some work on out here. Let's see, keep going. That took us back to the back. So I guess we've scrolled through all 331 species. Maybe not all 700 observations, but let me show you the robin one that I did earlier. Also got cedar waxwing on there too. See if you can hear this one. Can everybody hear that?
I couldn't hear it. I turned the volume all the way up on my iPad, but I couldn't hear it.
Anyway, sorry about that, but yeah, you pretty much just share the audio file from Merlin right to iNaturalist somehow. There was a button that came up that allowed me to do that, which was cool.
Pete, I have a question.
Hey, Carolyn. Yeah.
What happens when multiple people submit photos of the same species? Do they just get stacked, or how do they get added?
Yeah, it's not just an additional observation. Are you talking about of the same individual?
No. You do a monarch butterfly one day, and I submit a monarch butterfly another day, and somebody else submits one another day.
Yeah.
That doesn't go down as 3 different observations, right?
Yeah, it does. Each
So-
observation is an individual observation.
So if I'm scrolling through, the more people who are submitting, the bigger this file gets, right? I mean,
Yeah.
can it just become unmanageable? Can you search for a species?
Sure. Yeah, you can search by species, I believe. It really just a lot. I mean, it's fine to have as many different observations and species as you want out here. It just kind of helps build a database of that. Not really sure how to answer your question, but here's, while I'm on this box turtle, I trust you guys, but you can see this Florida box turtle is a desirable pet And I looked on Florida Fish and Wildlife website, and you're actually allowed to keep, each person in Florida, according to Fish and Wildlife Commission, is allowed to keep up to 2 box turtles personally. So people I'm sure there's people out there that are into collecting box turtles, and this is a very pretty one. So if someone were to see that on there and see that it was observed right at the front entrance to Crosby, they might try to go out there and try to pick it up. So I made that location private. And you can see that under place column on this page. And then the other locations all have an address, a general address, which is tied to your geolocation. So yeah, that's a good example of when to make it private, or at least obscured. The one thing I have noticed, and I'll try not to draw this out, if you make an observation obscured, it's still, okay, how do I do this? So I've seen people that are really into plants that want to find rare plants, and they can find an obscured location by a certain observer on a certain, and it still gives you the date, right? It gives you the date over here. So they'll find that observer, and they'll somehow find where that person was making other observations that weren't obscured on the same day, and they'll be able to kind of piece it together and figure out where that was.
Ah,
So you want to be a little careful, especially if it's a sensitive species, and you're making other observations nearby. You might want to go ahead and make that private rather than just obscured, because other people are very resourceful, and they'll figure it out. They'll still be able to figure it out.
wow. Pete, did you see a turkey vulture nest? I'm looking at that observation down there of the eggs.
Yes. Actually, I didn't see the nest. A friend of mine in South Florida in the Everglades sent me
Oh.
that picture and said, "What kind of eggs are these?" And we figured out that it was a turkey vulture, so I went ahead and threw it on iNaturalist.
Wow.
With the estimated location. But yeah, that's pretty darn early for bird nesting, but apparently in South Florida, maybe not.
Well, it's funny you said that, because people at Wild Birds Unlimited have been saying that they've been seeing a few nesting birds, not nesting birds, I'm sorry, birds going to the nesting boxes and, lining them up.
Oh, well, sometimes if you in the winter, I don't know, I've observed this with bluebirds, they'll go ahead and, it doesn't get that cold, they'll go ahead and start trying to nest, but then once it gets real cold again, it'll kind of
Yeah.
put it off. So here's what I was talking about with the tracks. I found these tracks out at Lake Apopka, Green Mountain, off the Green Mountain Trail, on just a scrub, sandhill, kind of sandy fence line area, and there was just tracks everywhere, and I was able to get common ground dove tracks. These were turtle tracks of some kind, but I wasn't able to get it down to species. Pretty cool.
That's super cool.
But I have a really cool one that I'll show you guys here in a second. Eastern cottontail tracks. These tracks were a little.
Where in Mineola were you?
The Green Mountain Trail. This is what Eastern cottontail tracks look like. It's like weird little tracks. I can't describe them. I think oh no, I didn't obscure the location, or maybe I did. American black bear. So I took this picture of a bear track in Mineola. And you can kind of see it. It's not the greatest track in the world, but it's right at a known location where they travel, according to the person that lives there in that area that I was with. And we were able to piece together that that was a bear track. And we found a barbed wire fence where it had walked through, and there was some black hair on the fence.
That's super cool, Pete.
Yeah, so Carolyn, to answer your question, are you familiar with the Green Mountain Trailhead out there? If you're on mute, maybe.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up quite a bit.
Oh, I am?
I don't know if anybody else is having that trouble.
I'm not, I can hear him good.
Yeah, me too. No, I'm not having any issues.
Okay, sorry, Carolyn. You might be the only one. But anyway, so see how it says Florida, US for the location column over to the right for the American black bear? I think that's because I obscured it. Let me just see. Not really sure. I see the and one person, it looks like one person verified it. I know there's a Florida black bear. I need to research whether or not this was probably the Florida black bear subspecies, or maybe they changed that by now, but okay.
But to your point, if anybody was looking at your other observations that do have addresses, or at least Mineola, they could pretty much ferret out that where you were based on the other observations you made that were more specific in their location.
Exactly. Which
That's
is kind of a problem with iNaturalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can see my geoprivacy status on this is obscured.
Yeah.
So it kind of shows you, let's see if it'll let me zoom in on it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it kind of shows you pretty close to where I was. I'm not sure how that's obscured, but
Oh, really?
well, anyway, that's pretty much all I have tonight. Thank you all for your interest in Crosby and iNaturalist, and get out there and start using it because it's such a cool tool.
Thank you.
I mean,
Oh,
there's
I learned so
people.
much more about it. That was fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you,
Pete.
Pete.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
you're
Pete. That was
welcome.
awesome.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Because
Thank
you know
you.
what, Pete, when we bring that up, we're using a group of people and we're like, ruh-roh, get into iNaturalist, hurry up, try to get a picture, identify it for the people. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Were there any other questions in the chat that I have not seen? Oh, I see 6.
I do have a question, Pete.
Okay.
Saturdays are pretty bad for me for a lot of reasons. And between you and the retired horse farm in where is it, Alachua, who only open on Saturdays, getting down to some of these places is an effort. What's the chance of getting out to Crosby on Sunday or on an afternoon or a morning during the week?
I can probably coordinate with you, and we have a gentleman that lives in the neighborhood that can let you out there.
Okay, I'll send you an email. I have a thing about, I only put birds on my life list if I have a photograph that I took. So I would love to see what's out there that's not on my list.
Okay. If you go out there anytime soon, bring some rubber boots. Because with all this rain we've had lately, it's extremely wet.
Well, it doesn't have to be real soon. I'm still working on a couple of thousand pictures from my trip last month, which was
Where'd you go?
well, mostly Argentina and Chile, mostly
wow.
Patagonia and Iguazu Falls. So
Love to see those sometime. You want to do a presentation for us?
maybe and the fellow who was leading the trip turned out to be a birder by accident. Well, it's not by accident that he's a birder, but it was an accident that I had a birder who was the trip leader, and he could hear something and then tell me what it was and then find it. And so it was a lot of fun.
Right on. So I see, Aaron, you had a chat comment, UF Department of Wildlife Ecology.
Yeah, a while ago, a couple of years ago, actually, I used to have Cuban tree frogs looking in my sliding glass door window while I was watching TV or reading a book or something. And I identified them and I did some research, and they're killing all of our local frogs, basically, either directly or indirectly. And there's a place where there's a form you fill out, and you can actually report how many you've captured. Put on a rubber glove because they secrete some really nasty liquids, and put them in a plastic bag and freeze them. And it's humane, and they want you to do that. So
Yes.
I'll send you a link to an article
Okay.
from them. So
and Aaron, here's my contact information.
okay, yeah, no, I took a picture of it while it was up before, so
Okay, great. Yeah, we
Okay.
can easily coordinate Sunday. Bryce that lives down the street works during the week, but I think he gets off work usually by about 3 or 4 o'clock.
All right, if it's a weekday afternoon, the earlier the better, because I'd be coming across the Buckman, and I'm sure that's not a fun place to be on a weekday afternoon if you can avoid it. So
No.
yeah, but okay, we'll work it out. Thank you.
Okay. And I didn't see any other chat questions. So with that, we will wrap it up and hope to see you out at Crosby this weekend. But I wouldn't blame you if you went to Huguenot instead. I'm kind of a little bit upset that I can't go to Huguenot. But
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
Pete.
Thank
All right,
you.
y'all.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.